What's up? I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast,
where we interview successful businessmen and women to let you in on why success doesn't have a single formula to follow.
We also have a little bourbon tasting along the way, because why not?
Why not?
So guys, please enjoy this episode and let us know your thoughts at Bourbon and Business Podcast on Instagram.
Coming to you from the Bourbon and Business Studio here in the Big Machine Distillery in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Dakota.
And this is the Bourbon and Business Podcast. That almost threw me off a little bit, Dakota.
Yeah, I thought you were about to say we're in Jackson, Mississippi, and we were definitely not in Jackson.
We are not today, so we have a special episode for all our listeners today. And Dakota, you want to introduce our guests?
I do. Today we have special guest, Mark Borchetta, Executive Vice President of Big Machine Distillery. Mark, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, guys. It's great to always be on, talk about business, talk about bourbon.
Yeah,
Two of my favorite things.
Hey,
Can
that's
we
what
add
we're
kart
here
racing
for.
in, and then we're really wrong.
Please do.
Well, what are we sipping on today?
Today we're sipping on Brochette bourbon, and this is the small batch.
So, man, Dakota, this is a really good bourbon. Like,
Yeah.
this is maybe one of the top that we've tried.
Okay.
So,
What you rating it at?
I'm gonna have to come in at a 9.8. So
That's strong.
that is a really good bourbon. Some of the best we've had on the podcast.
Yeah.
This
What do you think the proof is?
I'm gonna have to go with a 90 proof,
It's an 80.
80 proof. Okay,
Yeah.
well, low proof.
It's got a good
You know,
bite for
but
an
it
80.
still
though.
has a good burn at the
Yeah.
end. So even though the lower proof there, so
Yeah.
I like that. So, well, Mark, we appreciate you coming on today. We
sure.
like to always start this. So, we're Mississippi boys, so everybody likes to hear a story. So we want to hear where you're
Don't
from.
get me going. You can't shut me up.
Where you're from, you know, where you grew up, and then how you really got to the point of getting your bourbon line started.
Wow. Okay. 1963, December 28th. No, I'm kidding. So
It was a cold night.
it was
Yeah.
a cool night, yes, in Southern California. No, it was probably warm.
Yeah.
But, you know, all of my life I've loved art, culture. I like the truth of things, you know, when it comes to music. I like all kinds of music, you know, whether we're talking opera, country, rap, all of it. And I always like to know the truth about stuff. Same with art and spirits and food. So once in my late teens, I was gave up race car driving for a hot minute because I didn't really want to try to make a living at it. Got jobs and went into restaurants and became a wine steward at one of the top restaurants in Hollywood, and found out that I had a palate, and it was a consistent palate. So I would taste 61 Bordeaux's with these guys that would come in foil wrapped, and I'd say, well, that's probably your, you know, the Lafitte's probably right there, La Mission Aubryon is probably right there, because I'm tasting this and coming out from the Saint Julien region, and you know, and he was like, you're weird. But I loved doing that, and at the same time I was in film school at USC.
Okay.
And, you know, won an Emmy over there, did a lot of stuff, produced
Wow.
and directed for a lot of years, and had an ad agency, and just always been around marketing, business, and fine things. You know, like I said, I love art, I love spirits. And when I was at that restaurant, that's when Small Batch was first hitting the market. And so the Knob Creeks and the Makers, the Basil Haydens, you know, those were coming around. I'm like, hey, that's pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Because I was a single malt dude and grappa. And this came and I'm like, hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But then it just kind of went on the back burner for a
Yeah.
lot of years. And so, again, producing, directing, a lot of commercials, a lot of videos, running an ad agency, had a lot of fun. Some of the most fun things there was like in 2001, I was at a race because we're heavily into racing cars. Raced since I was 10 years old. And all of a sudden, you know, from a business standpoint and a marketing standpoint, I'm in an IndyCar race in Long Beach, and I see this little girl whooping on all these dudes. And then this guy who's super cool, Tommy Kendall, he's being walked around the pits on a dog leash by this girl who's about 5'1", long black hair. I said, who is this kid, this Danica? So I made some phone calls to IndyCar, and I found out that Bobby Rahal had just signed her. I said, hey, Bobby, you probably don't remember me, but we met and da-da-da-da-da. And I said, did you sign this little Danica girl? He goes, yeah. I said, you got sponsorship? And he goes, no. I said, I'm going to bring you all your money. send me some video footage.
Yeah.
And within about 4 months, I had all the money for him to go racing with Danica.
Wow.
And that's fun.
Yeah.
I love to build things. So that kind of, with the ad agency, launched a lot of fun success, a lot of award-winning campaigns. And, I love doing different things. And so building all that through the years, came into sort of the, mid 2015 area, whatever, looking to make some change geographically and stuff. And my brother said, "Hey man, I got this distillery I bought. Why don't you come run it?" I said, "No." Within about 2 years, I was here.
Yeah.
And we've had a great run. He bought this small little distillery down in Linville, which you guys have seen. And
Fantastic, by the way.
thank you. That's a tribute to my team. And, we'll talk about that at some point. But just a quick mention, Kylie, whom you've met, and Devin, Haley, Evie, these ladies are just rock stars, and really proud of what we do down there. But it was about quarter the size that it is that you saw today, and there were 6 employees here, and now we've got a lot of employees.
Yeah.
And we've grown up. We built this distillery here, or this tasting room and tavern here.
Yeah.
We've got our one down in downtown. We've got that, and so yeah, my brother and I have grown this thing into a bit of a monster.
Yeah.
In more ways than one.
We've
So
got a heck of a-
I'll take a breath and let you guys talk. I told you, you get me talking.
This is fantastic.
What do you like about it?
This is delicious.
I'll
It's
put you on the spot. I always say, Mark, tell us about your bourbon.
Look, come on. So I love the fact that it's got a little bit of a bite to it. It's more than like a usual 80 proof would be, but it's that flavor profile that hits you, right? So it's got just a kick of a burn to it, but it's got a great corn flavor to it. And I think Devin was walking us through that process earlier. I think it's a white corn
Yes, this
mix
one,
with it. So it's,
White and blue, actually, probably.
it's got just a hint of a sweet flavor to it, but it's also got that nice flavor to it that you would think, oh, that's a bourbon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's the small batch too there that just brings it together, and it's got that. Man, I don't know. It just leaves you wanting another sip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's funny because, and actually Kylie would tell us, because we've done a few different blends, but I'm going to guess there's a hint of red in here as well, because I get that sort of breakfast cereal, something that I get from that Jimmy Red corn that I love. And so what I find interesting about this is the actually smoothness, and you do talk about a little bit of a bite at the end, but it goes and hits the palate so nicely.
Yes.
And it's just hitting the market the last few months. The response has been amazing.
Yeah.
Literally, we've been going to these, events for years now. It's like been 7 years that I've been here. And, people are, oh yeah, that's good. Hey, this is great. And, our vodka, they'd say, oh my gosh, this is the smoothest vodka I've ever had.
Which it is. We have tried it before.
Yes.
It is fantastic.
very good.
Yeah, that platinum filtration works really well. And they're coming to us going, we're back here. This is the best bourbon of the show. And I'm like, they're not just saying that. We've been around doing that, and that's really rewarding because we've worked so hard at culling through the barrels and learning to blend them in different ways. And it's a real testament to me and the team.
Yeah.
Getting some validation like that from some true people who, that's all they do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I
Yeah.
think Devin was telling us that you guys won an award recently,
Well, for the
or
race
went
car,
double platinum.
super cool story. Again, I tell stories. You got to shut me up. You told me to talk.
Right.
People in Mississippi, you want a story. So we have our race car series, which we started that because Indy cars came to race downtown here in Nashville through the streets. And my brother goes, hey, should we sponsor this thing? I'm like, let's do it. So it's the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, right? And we decided to do a bourbon around it because Kylie had been saying for a while, like a year or so, we got to do a Borchetta Brothers, bourbon or something. And so we decided, all right, let's just do Borchetta bourbon, and it'll be a race car bourbon. We didn't know where to go with it design-wise. Gave it to my designer, David, and he wouldn't show me for like 2 weeks. And I'm like, David, I need to see something. And all of a sudden he comes with, hey, hats off, the Blanton's version, oh, there it is. You don't need to insert, it's right behind me. Race car.
Yeah.
And can I pick this up and hold it here? So the cool thing is, again, I've always loved Blanton's and I respect the heck out of them. What we do here is we take exact replicas of these cars and they're shrunken down. I was just in the race shop half a mile from here where we got about 20 cars that my brother has, from rare Ferraris and Indy cars and NASCARs. And this car is sitting in there. It's actually taken apart right now. And this is an exact replica of that car.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And so we're very detailed because we want our racing people to really respect us as much as we want the bourbon people to respect us. But so this is, you asked me what time it was. This is, I'm telling you how to make a watch and a grandfather clock.
There you go.
But so the first year, David all of a sudden walks out with this design, and he's got a car called the Marmon Wasp, which was the first car to win the Indy 500 in 1911.
What a name.
And the reason, well, it's pretty cool because it was the first thing that had an aerodynamic rear end to it, and it was bright yellow, so they called it the Wasp. It smoked the rest of the field.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about it is this photo on here is Indy cars in 1911, right down the street here at the Fairgrounds Speedway racing,
Wow.
right after that Indy 500. So we've got this photo going back for IndyCar origins, and we're doing IndyCar here. So we just decided every year to do a bourbon, and I said, let's just hit the top of the market with this. Let's not go with a blend. Let's not do anything. Let's just put out our best barrels. So Kylie started pulling barrels for me to taste, and I just said, let's limit the allocation. We only did 1,000 bottles, and then. Sorry for you guys out there that don't like me for this, and I respect that, but my distributor said, what are you going to price it at? I said, I don't know. And the night before, he goes, you got about an hour to tell me how much you're going to charge. And I said, $299 retail. He goes, I'm not taking it. I'm like, all right, I respect that.
Yeah.
We'll sell it out of our tasting rooms, and, we'll just be a little heirloom for my brother and me for the rest of our lives. But I said, if you take it, I'll figure out some way to buy back if you don't sell it all. So he got like 50 cases, whatever it was, and he sold them all in an hour and a half.
Wow.
And so we
That's
said,
impressive.
okay, that's a good start. But what I did is, all the bourbon real people out there, I pissed you all off, and I'm sorry. But this is a lot of effort we put into the box, into the making. We're not Blanton's doing, 100,000 cases or whatever. Costs us a lot of money to do this, and we do want to make some money when we sell it. And it's rare. Again, only 1,000 bottles every year.
Right, and what the neat thing about it, and you touched on this earlier, but it's actually, with bourbon, there's always been stories that have been told. That's the whole thing. Hey, you drink your bourbon, you sit around and tell stories. The bottle itself and the packaging of this bourbon tells a story.
Yes.
Each one individually. So that was really neat. I've never seen that before. So.
Well, thank you, and that means a lot that you recognize that, because, there's pictures of here. This is the Mario Andretti year, and here's my dad with Mario, my brother with Mario, and then on the 2022 and the 2024 there's pictures of when I'm 10 years old with AJ Foyt at California Motor Speedway right after he won the race in the winner's circle.
Wow.
And us with Bobby Enser and Al Enser's autographs, when we're 8 years old in the cement. So this is cool for us. We get
history.
to relive this.
Yeah.
But back to then your guys' world of the bourbon. Like I said, I know it kind of irritated people at the price, but the important thing is that it's gone now to blind tastings. And I think about an hour ago, you asked me when we started this about an award we won. And I just went into this long tirade. So about 6-8 months ago, call it, we get a note that, hey, you guys, you just crushed it at the Ascot Awards. I'm like, really? And he said, yeah. And so I get a call from this guy, Fred Minnick. And he's like, who are you? And I said, well, you called me. I'm paraphrasing. But it was super cool chat. And he goes, you guys just were like a top 25 in the Ascot.
Wow.
And I said, out of 26 or 27 entries? And he said, 1,200.
Sheesh.
He goes, and I've never heard of you. And I said, well, now you have. And so
Lucky you.
He said, you were like one away from winning best of show in your category.
Golly.
And he said, that doesn't happen with new bourbons. And so I got to go on stage with some super cool people here, from our local distillers that are way, way cooler than I am. I was over at Nelson's Greenbrier, and, talked about what we do and how we do it and all. And at the end of that, I'm walking out, and I said, by the way, Fred, how many judges for the Ascot Award, where we got this double platinum award? He goes, 52.
Oh, man.
I said, what? Yeah, 26 industry, 26 media, And he said, the notes on your bourbon were insane. And it was the Mario Andretti Barrel 821. And I'm like, wow. Now I got to figure out how to follow that up. So anyway, it's neat to be recognized like that. Again, we really put a lot of effort. I know you guys have heard this story all day long since you were down there, but our corn is grown, I don't know, I hear 3.6 miles, 4 miles, 5 miles. It's less than 6 miles from our distillery. And, you know, they've got
We
that.
saw the fields.
Oh, you went out there?
Yeah,
Good.
I mean,
never
you
went
see
out
the
there.
fields driving into it, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's just cornfields all around it.
Exactly. And, you know, Jeremy, you know, they're a century farm, you know, been growing corn forever. And they're using the stone mill, and it's, you know, gets a really fine texture to the corn. And Devin loves working with that. And so did Clay before us, by the way. And I would be remiss not to give a shout out to you, Clay. You know, Clay Cutler and his brother-in-law built 10 South Distillery in 2011. My brother bought it in 2015 from them. You know, and he did some really good stuff. And, you know, these first awards that we get, I always make sure I send him a bottle and go, hey, this is you. You made this, you know. And I think he appreciates that because he did it for the love of it.
Yeah. Well, that's important, you know, in business or whatever you're doing, that you have a passion for it, and that, you know, that there is a love for it, what you're doing there. And speak to our
I don't care about it. You can tell. I'm just here until, when am I done?
Yeah, I can tell, right?
And speak to our listeners a little bit of what drives you, your passion to be successful. What is it that drives you on a day-to-day basis to obviously be able to create a bourbon that becomes the top 25 when you go to an award banquet like that?
I think that my brother and I together, we just have a real need to succeed. You know, what he did with the record label with Big Machine is, you know, it's legendary, of course. You know, and like I said, when I got into my ad agency, I wanted to do something epic. You know, and all of a sudden, you know, I got this company doing $5 billion a month with the Danica Patrick campaign. You know, won a lot of big awards, and we want to race. When we race, we want to win. We win championships. I don't know. It's just a need to succeed, and not just because we're putting out, you know, an inexpensive, you know, screw that happens to be worthwhile, but we like to do stuff that feels meaningful, right? And that products that people need. You know, my brother would say, hey, we want music out there that people need, you know, not just that they're maybe going to want, you know. And with this, they're saying if we're going to go into the bourbon market, we got to have a story, to your point. And, you know, we met with Mike Williams early on, who's a super rock star in this world. And we said, hey, you know, just like to consult, we'd like to go to the experts, and said, we're thinking of starting with a high-end bourbon, you know, and really putting our best juice out there so people see that we're handcrafted. And as you saw, I mean, you know, we're pulling that bag of corn from the field, you know, ourselves, and, you know, and spending the time and effort to make a really good product. We want people to know that. And same with, you know, again, when we do our racing, we want to go out there and see that we build cars and we race to win, and we do music to win, and we philanthropy to win. And yeah, and it's hard. Trust me. We don't wake up every day and go, oh yeah, where's the caviar and the champagne, and you know, maybe I'll do a phone call today. You know, we work our tails off to do this. And
Well, that's so important to be successful in anything. You know, a lot of people, they see the glamour of what comes after, but they don't see the grind and the work that goes into it. And
I'm going to put a little note on that. Please don't lose your thought. But some people have said to me, you know, because again, my brother's much more in the limelight than I am with some things, and some of them will come to me, and it really pisses me off when they say this, like, yeah, he's kind of gifted, or he's kind of blessed, isn't he? Or he just kind of, you know, gets things kind of go easy for him. And somebody said that to me recently, and it's somebody close to me, and I almost went off on him. And you have no idea the amount of hours he puts in, the amount of hours that I put in, and the grit, you know.
The
and trust me, we go through tough times. This is not easy. I mean, tough times, and we just got to work through them and stick with it every day.
You get hit with crises, you know, that you have to make a decision within 10 minutes, and it could make or break the company, right? But
well,
nobody knows about those.
Because we're never 100% right, and you make that decision, and you go. And I try to tell my people a couple of things. One of them being that, hey, once that decision's made, we all have to believe it's the right decision, because that's the best chance we've got.
That's a good piece of advice.
Yeah.
Well, and what advice would you give? We have listeners reach out to us, especially a lot of times people that are younger, wanting to break into an industry. What advice would you give them to tell them, hey, like these are the keys to you being successful?
Oh, you're asking me to go there. I'll give you my brother's answer first because it's his is quick and easy. He says, love what you do and outwork everybody. And I love you, Scott, and I agree with that from the outworking everybody. And I think what he means by loving it is it helps motivate you. But I was invited to speak about 15 years ago to a group of business people, business students in a graduate course at a university. And I'd been to every type of motivational speaking thing out there, from Zig Ziglar to Tony Robbins, whatever. And my library's full with motivational books and how-to books. And I said, I go to these things and they're just talking throughout, and you're like, oh, that's a great point. That's a great point. That's a great point. And then you go away and you got a book of great points, but it's like, what do you do the next day?
How do I do it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I sat, and I'm a big believer in formulas that don't make sense mathematically. And I'm also a big believer in simplicity, third grade level communication, and things that are easy to remember, So I came up thinking, what does it really take to succeed? And I sat there and I racked my brain for about 6 weeks and came up with this formula that I call 4 minus 1 equals 5. It's like, no, it doesn't.
That sounds like Tyler math right there.
Yeah. So, and the reason I did that is because I found 4 things that I evaluate somebody to see what their likelihood is to succeed or fail. And there's the 5th thing that I've seen as the example of failure time and time again from really successful things. So there's 4 things that I said is first, vision. It's like, well, no matter what my goal is, if I just needed to be here today, I had to know how to get here. In my mind, I had to see where to go. If you don't have the vision, first of all, you're up against a bit of a challenge. And I rate all these things on a 1 to 10. The second thing is the ability. It's like, okay, I needed to get here. Did I have the ability to get here? Well, do I have a car? Can I take an Uber? Walk? So, all right, well, I knew visually where I was going. I had a car. And is there an opportunity to be here? Well, you guys invited me, so there's an opportunity to be here. And again, 1 to 10, what is that opportunity? Well, today was kind of a 9 or a 10. Isabella got me here, so, But let me sidetrack for a second on opportunity. Every year, there's how many thousands of drivers that want to run the Indy 500?
Yeah.
You have 33 spots.
Right.
It's not a great opportunity unless you got a really clear vision and great ability. Okay, and that kind of stacks your odds.
High barrier to entry there.
There you go. But same thing, it's a low barrier of entry to sell ice to Eskimos, but what's that opportunity really?
Yeah.
Okay, low barrier of entry, but we all got it. Okay, it's coming out our rears.
Yeah.
So I look at the opportunity, the vision, the ability, and then I look and say, okay, so if I can see it, I got the opportunity, Isabella's told me to be here, I see there's an opportunity, well, why wasn't I here? Well, I was, but why wouldn't I be here? I still got to commit. So vision, ability, commitment, opportunity are how I view everything every single day. And these guys are tired of hearing it after 5 years, 6 years, like Kylie's been here, because I talk about it every retreat. But nobody has been able to dispel it. Because I'll look at, if you guys are successful, well, what's your vision of what you're trying to do? What's your ability to get that done? You committing to it? And, what's that opportunity to do it? You're going to rate and I rate myself every day, all day long, personal relationships, professional relationships, going out to race cars, etc. And so it's like, okay, so the only thing that we can control there would be what? Can you control your vision? Can you control your ability, the opportunity, or commitment? What can you control?
Yeah.
Commitment. Michael Jordan, great at shooting a basketball, couldn't hit a fastball.
Yeah.
Different abilities.
Right.
I can drive a car really well. I can't shoot a basketball to save my life. And some people are born able to see math equations. Some, obviously not me. Some people are born who, can see art, savants. All of a sudden they can draw Rome from a helicopter, having flown around it. So we all have different, we're born with different abilities and things.
Well, and that's one thing we talk about here. Like it's so important to, figure out as soon as you can something that you do have a passion for and you do have a vision for, because when you do have a vision for something, there becomes, like you talk about, this commitment. There's also this drive that it's going to succeed. There's never a doubt in your mind.
You believe in your bones
that it's going to fail. Like you just know, like, this thing is going to succeed. It does take the work, but it's important also. If you don't have that drive, the vision, the passion behind it, it's not going to, because you're not going to put the work in.
Well, and it's funny, and I'm going to get into the debate because we haven't gotten to the fifth thing that destroys it all, but I'll get to that in a bit. There's two people who had ideas of what could dispel this formula. One was the first night I did it, and they said, "Oh, this guy's really tough on speakers, don't worry." He steps, he goes, "Yeah," he goes, "money. You can't succeed without money." I said, "Money's opportunity." I said, "And money is ability. If you want to do this and I want to do this and it takes $1 million, then if I want to drive the Indy 500 and I've got $2 million in my pocket and we're the same, I'm going and you're not." Okay, so money is not that. That falls within that category. Passion. One lady who I really adore, a doctor, and she said, "I hate to tell you, but passion." And I said, "Here's a book called Open by Andre Agassi. Read the first chapter, then come back and tell me you need passion." And instead of telling you what he said, "How did you like school?" "Hated it." "How'd you do?" "A+." Tell your kid to clean his room, doesn't want to do it, but you crack that whip, maybe he'll do it. Right. What Andre said is, I think the opening line in his book, "I hate tennis." Poppy, stop making me hit balls. He said, if you get 1 million balls by the time you're 14, blah, 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 you're going to be the best player in the world. And again, does he hate tennis? I don't know the answer, but that's what he put in his book. I hate tennis. Look, I didn't like school when I was younger, but I did well. So here's what I tell my people. Just makes it a lot more fun if you got the passion. It just makes it a lot more fun. It
helps you reframe the situation, right?
It helps your commitment on those bad days.
For sure. I mean, you might actually not like tennis, but the competitive aspect of it and your passion for winning could propel you forward in that sport.
Agreed. And your ability.
Yeah.
The ability.
Yeah.
So the last thing on it, since you asked, and I knew you were going there, I think, is what will destroy it all is ego. You see some of these great bands out there. You see corporations out there. You see these things, governments. And well, how do we define ego? And very little time left, but I can either ask you how to define it or I'll just give you my definition. I define ego as doing what I want at the expense of doing what I need. I need to get to this thing today. No, I want to go drive some go-karts first. No, that's ego. That is ego, and that works in relationships. I need to get home to the wife. I want to go drink at the bar. Sorry for real, you guys that do that. Or the women that do that. You know, I need to help around the house. I don't want to. Those are things that then affect your relationship. What is your goal? If your goal is to have a happy relationship, what are you doing there? You know, and then there's conflicting needs. People say you should have done this, you should have done that. No, that's an idea then of conflicting needs within a relationship. But if it's pretty clear, you know, I don't want to help with the child, but I need to. That's going to affect your relationship. You know? So anyway, sorry about all that.
Well, no, that's a good word.
Some very wise words there, Mark. We appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you.
We like to always take this time, Dakota, real quick, give us your rating on the bourbon.
This is really, really good. I mean, I gave you my opinion on it a little bit earlier when Mark asked me, put me on the spot there, but I'm right there in that same ballpark, 9.8, 9.9 for sure.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Well, and to all our listeners, if you would, go online and actually book your tour for the distillery here. You can find all their information. Just Google them. You can find them online.
Big Machine Distillery.
There you go. And however you stream this podcast, if you would give us a rating and follow us on social media, and we will see you next week.
9.9.
9.9.
Hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
If you have any feedback or would like to be featured, reach out to us at bourbonandbusinesspodcast@gmail.com.
Or find us on Instagram at Bourbon and Business Podcast.
Thanks again for listening.
Follow us for more content and info on the next episode.